Welcome to Get Your Bell Rung, a pro wrestling podcast. Today is one of the most intriguing and physical imposing forces on the independent wrestling scene. A man who stepped into this world in 2021 and wasted no time making his presence felt across promotions like International Wrestling Cartel and Prospect Pro Wrestling. Known to many as the Bald Bombshell, he is one half the powerhouse tag team Swole Patrol alongside Vic Braun, a duo that has built its reputation on intensity, dominance, and a brand of confidence that demands attention every time they step through the curtain. But behind the physique, the attitude, and the persona built on exaggerated masculinity and crowd reaction, there's a real journey worth understanding, a journey of growth, pressure, identity, and what it truly means to carve out a place in professional wrestling's most competitive environments. This conversation is not just about wins and losses. It's about the man behind the character, the sacrifices made along the way, and the story you do not always see when the bell rings. This is VJ Hales. How are you, my friend?
Listen, after that introduction, I don't really think I can really top that. I mean, talk about putting somebody over, man. Wow, that was something. I thank you very much. I really appreciate that, and it's a pleasure to be on with you.
Man, you're pretty damn talented. I was watching your matches last night, and one of your matches, I think it was against Arn, Mike. Can't remember the
Bonner.
Yes, Bonner. I mean, what an incredible physical match that was. And I tell you, you brought a little nostalgia. One of the matches I watched you when you did the little Rick Rude thing that he used to do in the ring. I'm like, look at you, man. What made you decide to get into this crazy world of professional wrestling, VJ?
I mean, growing up, that was all I watched. That's all I wanted to do. Other kids, were reading Superman comics and Batman, and, they had their superheroes. Mine were Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior. So that was just kind of my upbringing, and, always was drawn to it, always loved it. And I don't know, I got into my 30s, and I just had that feeling of I didn't want to be on the recliner someday and say, man, I wish I would have. And that thought just haunted me. And I said, screw it. I said, I'm going to go to wrestling school, and I'm going to learn everything that I can and try to be as good at this as I can be. And, I'll be the first to admit that I don't do a lot. But what I do, I try to do well.
I mean, look, and I'm a brutally honest guy. And I would avoid the conversation if I truly didn't mean this, because I'm not going to be cruel to somebody. But I mean, look, you're extremely talented. You really are. I enjoyed. There's not one match that I watched that I didn't enjoy. You really are you're incredibly talented. But before we talk about the Bald Bombshell, which, by the way, I take issue with that name a little bit. Just saying. Before we get there, though, man, who is VJ when nobody's watching, when the cameras are off? Who is VJ?
I'm a dad. That's, my kids are my life. I go to work. I start every day at 1:40 in the morning. I get up in the middle of the night, heading out of the house by about 2:20, pulling into the gym at about 3:15, and get my workout in. And then I go right to work all day, and then come home and I do it all over again, and look forward to those moments on weekends where I can, go and do what I love, what I'm passionate about, and what really drives me. And, I think everybody needs that one thing in their life that keeps them grounded, keeps them working, keeps them striving for something. And that's what wrestling is for me. It's that thing that I always want to do better. I always want to be better. I always want to, how could I piss somebody off more next time? Right. How could I get them to boo me or cheer when I'm getting my ass kicked even more? Right. And that, I just live for that, man. I love that reaction. I love that, I mean, you don't know how many times that I'm, getting booed or people are screaming Mr. Clean at me. And like, I'm acting like I'm so pissed off, but like inside I'm like, yes,
Right.
thank you. Yes.
Right. Well, you talk about what drives you. What happens if professional wrestling was completely stripped away from you? What would drive you then as a man?
It was stripped away from me for a couple years. I took some time away to focus in on my family, and there was always that void. I stopped paying attention to it. I didn't follow any of the promotions that I worked for on social media anymore. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't even watch WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor. It was that hard for me to step away that I had to literally distance myself from everything because it was too painful. And luckily, people that I'm close with knew why I distanced myself. And then it wasn't anything personal. And I actually didn't even ask to come back. I was retired and I had finally made peace with it and was at a Comic-Con and ran into Mark Charles. And he pulled me aside and asked me if I was interested in coming back. And even then I said, nah, man, I don't know. I said, my body finally feels good. I'm not nursing any injuries. I've made peace with it and I think I'm okay just being away. And within like 2 hours, I texted him back and was like, yeah, man, I'm back in. Let's go. Like, when do we start? Basically,
Right.
I mean, it didn't take long at all for me to get that itch again. And, since it's been back, it hasn't left me.
Let's talk about when you first got into the business. You debuted in 2021. And although you're not an old guy, but in wrestling standards, right? You started later on in life. Did something particularly happen at that point in your life that made you decide, you know what, this is the time? I know you say you wanted to have a purpose. You didn't want to just sit on the couch, but was there something else bigger than that?
There really wasn't. It was just that thought of, regret. And it was right after the pandemic had hit. And, that's all you saw was people dying and, just tons of drama and arguments and political shit. And it was just, and it was just one of those things that like I needed something in my life that I could focus my energy on that was positive.
Right.
And I think I just happened to stumble across something online for wrestling school. And I just like, it was one of those things I like looked at and then didn't look at it and then looked at it again and then kept like every day kept looking at it. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Shot an email out and went to the tryout and, and that's kind of the story. And, I wish I had some big epiphany or something, some big calling or something catastrophic that happened in my life. It really was just that I wanted to do something that I've loved since I was 3 years old. And I said, screw it. Now's the time.
We all have our expectations, regardless of what we do in life. There's expectations of what we think it's going to be like, and then reality, right? What did wrestling expose about you that you didn't expect? And what was exposed in professional wrestling that you had no idea?
So about me is I didn't understand how agile I was. When you first start out, it's a lot of rolling, a lot of tumbling, learning to go over the ropes backwards, doing pop-up drills in the corner. And I'm like, and I'm watching, I'm like, I can't do that. Like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, like I'm a bodybuilder, I pick up shit and set it back down. That's what I do. And I was surprised at it, just kind of how it came along. I mean, I really, really shocked myself I'm like, oh, I can do this. So, definitely had no confidence going into it. And then after a couple of weeks, like, okay, I think I can do this. And honestly, what was exposed to me was just how actually physically brutal it is.
Right.
And I truly understood why professional wrestlers would get so angry and upset when someone would call it fake. I always thought it was just because somebody was being demeaning to their profession, which is, equally as aggravating. But, go hit those ropes, go take some bumps, take a clothesline, take a shoulder tackle, and you tell me what's fake about it. You know, I tore my hamstring back in June. I just tore my rotator cuff like 3 weeks ago, still working through it. Haven't missed a day at the gym. There's a lot of things I can't do. But what I can do, I'm not going to stop there. I'm not, I just, I do not have that quit in me. I'm not a sit on the couch and feel sorry for myself. It's is there a worker way? Is there a workaround? I'll find it and I'll do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's why we do our recap shows on AEW, WWE, and we share our honest opinion. But one thing that is not allowed to do is we do not talk shit about the talent because of the fact of my rule is unless you can put on those boots and those trucks and do it better, you can't trash them. You can say you're not invested in the storyline. That's fine. But yeah, we don't trash because of that, with the exception of Bob Cook and Robbie Idol, because they've been in the business. They're veterans. I'm not, who am I to say, well, you shouldn't say that about, someone that's wrestling those guys. But I get what you're saying. And what's funny, though, you talk about you being a bodybuilder, I swear to you, and I want to see if this is true for you. It seems like the guys that had the toughest, that cardio-wise, that had a hard time dealing with it cardio-wise in the beginning, it was hard for them, were the guys that were like you in shape, because you go in there thinking you're in shape, you're a specimen, and then you realize, holy shit, ring cardio is much different than regular cardio. Was that something you experienced as well?
That actually wasn't, because I am a cardio freak.
Right.
So most bodybuilders stay away from cardio, and they like to control it all with diet. I am not built that way. I'm 100% Italian. I gain weight looking at food. I don't even have to ingest it. It just goes on, and it goes on in the worst places. Right. So I just fell in love with endless cardio. I do at minimum an hour and 40 minutes a day of cardio alone. So even without weight training, I'm already at almost 2 hours working out, which is why I get up at 1:40 in the morning, and everyone's like, you're crazy. Like I said, I will find a way to make it work. If that means I get 2 hours of sleep, that means I get 2 hours of sleep. But I'm going to make it work. I'm not an excuse maker. I think we have a very bad epidemic in this world of people feeling sorry for themselves and being victims. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. The world does not care. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about your hopes, your dreams, what you've been through, what you're going to go through. You show up every day and you put the work in. Because at the end of the day, we're all a spoke on the wheel. One of the spokes falls off. Guess what? That wheel is going to keep rolling. So you either want to be on the ride or you don't. It's up to you. No one's going to do it for you.
Yeah, 100. Look, one of the hardest times of my life was when my father passed away. And someone told me something that is stuck in my head to this very day. And it doesn't matter how bad you're feeling. It doesn't matter how shitty things were. The fact of the matter is just because you stop in the world doesn't stop. It keeps going.
Yeah.
And as well as you have to make a decision. Are you going to keep moving forward? Or are you going to remain stopped and let the world pass you by? And with cardio, I know for myself, man, I do cardio. I'm almost addicted to it. I do a minimum of 12 to 13 miles 5 days a week. This morning I got up, I did 18 miles before we did this interview. If I don't do that, I get moody and I feel like my day's off. Are you like that with cardio?
Oh my God. Yeah. I have to do something. This was, like a month ago, we took the kids down to the St. Patrick's Day parade. So I did not get up and go to the gym first thing in the morning. And I went in the afternoon. I mean, all morning I didn't feel right. I felt like something was missing. Like I just felt off. And then the moment I went, everything just clicked and I felt right again. And people think that's crazy. And I honestly can't verbalize why or how, but anyone who is addicted to exercising and addicted to bettering themselves physically knows that feeling, and they probably also can't describe to anybody else how or why, but every single one of them knows that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about something in your life that you went through, and it doesn't have to even involve professional wrestling. We're trying to get to know VJ here. Talk to me about something in your life that literally almost broke you. How did you get through it?
I wouldn't say broke me, but going through my divorce was extremely tough on my children, and watching them go through that was, I mean, you know, it's like whenever you have a baby and they're sick, you know, and they just cry and cry. They can't tell you what's wrong. They can't verbalize how they're feeling. And it just breaks your heart because you want nothing more than to help them, but you can't. And that, you know, it was more of that hopeless feeling, you know, because it wasn't a bad divorce. It wasn't, you know, it was very amicable. It was very friendly. It's still friendly. You know, the kids rebounded greatly, but just that hopeless feeling of, I wish I could do something to make them stop feeling this way and not being able to, you know, that was like daily torture, you know, yeah, I mean, tearing my quad in 2015. You know, I heavily rely on being physical. I don't do well sitting. I'm not a sit and play video games kind of guy. If I sit down to play a video game, you got me for about 25 or 30 minutes, and then I got to get up and do something. That's it. Um, you know, so being laid up with a fully torn quadriceps was awful. I had to just sit with my own thoughts for like 3 months and not do anything. And that was torture as well. And then just recently with tearing this rotator cuff, I mean, you know, Vic and I are on a great run. We're having fun. We're kicking ass. You know, I mean, it's so great to be back. And, you know, it was an unfortunate. I just got kicked in the shoulder. They'd been giving me problems, so it was probably going to tear regardless. It's just a matter of time. Because I even said before the match, you know, I don't want to catch anybody. I don't want to, you know, because I'm afraid of hurting my shoulder. I mean, literally minutes before, I'm like, I don't want to catch anybody because I'm afraid that with that force coming down, that it's going to do something to my shoulder. And sure as shit, kick came through. And I mean, it felt like dynamite went off in my shoulder. And I just had that hopeless feeling again. And that was why the next day I was like, I got a brace. That morning I braced up and I went to the gym, and I was like, I'm going to figure out what I can and can't do.
Yeah. Is this so? I've torn my rotator cuff in each arm. One of them, I opted to go through surgery. The next one, I actually hired a trainer in the gym, lifted weights to work through it. Are you surgery, or are you working through it in the gym?
I'm working through it. Had a little setback last week, so I can do some chest. I can do flat bench press, push-ups, and if there's a flat, like plate-loaded machine press, I can do that. I can't do anything incline. I can't control dumbbells. I can't even curl a dumbbell. 20 pounds, it feels like the front of my arm is going to come off. So I have to do everything with machines. And this guy was spotting me, and I got it. I'm like, okay, this feels good. You know, he's getting it up. You know, I think I can go wider and do more. And I mean, I did like 3, came down on that 4th one, and I could literally feel something coming apart. And I heard this crackle like someone stepped on a bag of potato chips, and I just dropped it and didn't touch anything until this morning. It was the first time I did chest. It's been like 9 days, and kept it light, high reps, and I feel great.
Yeah, you know, I had surgery on one only because there was bone spurs. I had to get that removed.
Okay.
The one that I had just worked out. Oh, got the trainer. I swear to you, lifting weights, there was limitations, but you know what really bothered me? I swear to you, what gave me the most pain when I sat down and if I needed to type stuff on the computer, dude, it was like the most excruciating pain. Worked out fine, lift weights fine, right? Of course, I have my trainer to make sure myself sitting down, typing. What the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Mine, tanning. The
Yeah.
most painful thing I have done since tearing my rotator cuff is laying flat in a tanning bed. Within 30 seconds, it feels like my shoulder's going to fall off. It is
Yeah.
awful. Awful. How stupid.
Yeah.
Tanning is the most painful thing I do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. What do you think people misunderstand about grinding on the Pennsylvania indie scene?
Honestly, I mean, we have the best fans. I mean, anywhere that I've worked, I mean, they are so engaging. They're so supportive. You see the same faces there every single month, paying their hard-earned money to come and watch, a bunch of guys who, are janitors and work at grocery stores or, I mean, this isn't our life.
Right.
We have a day job, we have families, and this is something we do because we love it. And they are so invested in it, and they come out and pay their money to watch us. And that's never lost on me. I'm always so appreciative and honored by that. I think Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas have the best indie fans in the world. They're so engaging. They're so supportive. Even whenever they're talking shit on me and saying horrible things, I know that they're that's part of it, and I love it. And I truly couldn't ask for better fans. It's a really really great scene. And yeah, I mean, honestly though, there could be 10 people there, and I would be honored at that. It wouldn't, it's not the number. It's just that somebody appreciates what you do.
And that leads me to the next question. Because so many professional wrestlers, it's all about the size of their crowd. You say it doesn't matter if 10 people are there, because you appreciate that. Do you think that a smaller crowd can teach you things that a larger crowd couldn't teach you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, honestly, every crowd can,
Right.
like working at 814 in Johnstown is amazing. They like a story. They like to be engaging. They like, they're not looking for 450 splashes and move, 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 no sell, no sell, no sell, more move, more move, more move. That's not them. They want you to talk shit, work stiff and see a fight, and I love that about working up there because that's how I work. If you see me going up to the top rope, I'm taking that flare bump. I'm not jumping off of it and doing anything, like I'm a ground guy. I'm 40 years old, and I'm in the ring with kids that are 19, 20. Like the two guys we wrestled last month, I said, I have to ask you, how old are you? I said, because I don't want Sue. Like, you're at least 18, right? And it's just so wild to see what these kids can do and how they can fly around. I'm so jealous of their athleticism, so jealous of, the things that they can do physically. But, I always take time if someone will listen. I always try to give feedback. And, like we were in the match and the kid grabbed Vic for a bulldog and kind of realized he wasn't in a good ring position. And, rookie mistake, you'll just, okay, I'm just going to take one step and do it anyways. He looked right. He repositioned himself, 2 little steps, on a bunch of footwork, bam, landed it nicely. Afterwards, I gave him a hug and I said, brother, veteran move. I said, way to go, because those are the little things that I like. Those are the little things that I pick up on. Like, I'm sorry if you can do a flippy dippy so or whatever, great. That's wonderful. But can you tell a story? Can you be safe? Can you take care of yourself and your opponent? And I feel like that's something that's really lacking nowadays in wrestling because it's so move centric that nobody stops to tell a story. It's not about that you can do the move. Why are you doing the move? What is that going to lead to? I mean, I watched Jake Roberts go for a DDT 7 or 8 times in a match, and each time I'm like on my seat jumping, like, is he gonna get it? Is he gonna get it? I don't know about you. I never see him come off the top rope.
Nope.
One of the best workers I've ever seen, best promo I've ever seen.
Yep.
he's not going through tables. He's not busting his head on glass. He's not doing, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just old. I don't know.
You're not. You're something I noticed that you do that I think is a lost art in professional wrestling, and I think it's a lost art because of the fact of what you're saying is so moveset. You will actually stop when you're at the right moments and talk shit back to the crowd.
Yeah.
Right? You do that. You don't see very many guys doing that anymore, and to me, that makes such a huge difference because people may not think much about it, but you're getting your fans involved when you're doing that. You're involving them, and it's part of telling the story. What else do you think is a lost art that's not being done today because of the fact that it's so just move?
The working punch. Everybody throws that flipper now to the neck.
Yeah.
And I just think that nothing looks, in my opinion, again, if that's what you do and you like to do it, I don't begrudge anybody. Me personally, I think it doesn't look like a fight. It doesn't, you're supposed to be simulating a real fight. I don't know about you, but I've never lined someone up at a bar and went,
nope.
I just, anytime I see that flipper, I just go, I have another pet peeve too, and this is really stupid, but kick pads.
Yeah.
You're trying to hurt your opponent. You're trying to kick your opponent. So you're going to put padding on?
Mm-hmm.
That one just right over my head. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's a good question. We're talking about the audience. If possible, describe to me the first time you felt the audience truly react to you. Was that the moment that you were like, I got this shit. I'm actually doing this?
So, I know that I've been, working for 6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But probably this was maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, working at 814. And the crowd was all over Vic and I. Like loud. They were, every time I would get hit, they would come out of their seats. And I walked over to him and I went, dude, are you hearing this? He's like, yeah, this is crazy. I'm like, dude, I think this is, hey man, we're getting over here. This is awesome. And then watching that match back, I didn't realize it in the moment, but I always watch my matches back. And we went about from entrances to exit about 33 minutes, which is a long match, especially on the indies. I did one offensive move. One. And watching it back, I went, now I get it. I thought I got it before, but I don't think I did. That was the moment that I got it. That it's not about, because I know that I'm not a big move centric guy, but I still would be like, okay, there's a gap in time. I need to do something. No, you don't. I think the biggest offensive move I did that night was I choked the kid with his own headband. That's, you don't need to do a ton. And I was so glad that I came up when I did because, in coming up through wrestling school, you set the ring up, you set the chairs up, you work a little thing during the match, you pay your dues, you are watching, you're learning. And I got to watch Jock Sampson. And I watched him in a match it had to be 10 minutes. He got in the ring. He rolled out of the ring. He got back in the ring. He rolled out. He did that. And the crowd went crazy. And it was like, wow, that's the kind of control somebody has over the crowd with their character. They don't even have to do anything. Just rolling in and rolling out with that attitude, with that posture, got over. And I was so glad that I got to watch guys like him and learn. That was the best wrestling school that I could have went to. Watching, obviously in training, I was trained by Chris LaRusso, and I mean, detail oriented to the umpteenth degree. An absolute fantastic teacher, a wealth of knowledge. Um, and, I had a great group of people around me, and I couldn't have been more thankful for, when I was starting and who I was able to be around. Obviously, doing it during the pandemic kind of sucked. I remember one of my first matches having to come down with a mask on. I could take it off to go in the ring.
Right.
But I had to walk down with it on,
Right.
So kind of a weird time to get started. But again, so thankful for the influences that I had and the people that I got to watch that really just perfected their craft.
Let's talk about your body for a second. Obviously, you're well built. Everyone can see that. Part of building your body, did you do so for confidence or protection?
Confidence. I was somebody who struggled with my weight my entire life. I was 5 years old when the pediatrician put me on my first diet. Was I weighed in the sixth grade what I weigh right now.
Wow.
And then when I went to college, I got up to almost 300 pounds. And was just miserable all the time. I felt terrible. I always felt uncomfortable. I would wear two shirts. I'd constantly take my hands and push my shirts out because I didn't like it clinging to my stomach. And I just remembered how awful that felt, how uncomfortable I felt, and how I always felt like I never quite fit in, because all my friends were always thin. So I was always the fat, funny one. I wasn't the one the girls were interested in. I wasn't the one that could do fantastic things athletically. And so I just always relegated myself to being the funny one. Um, and it was just that feeling of like second best, never feeling quite good enough that just finally led me to, what, like, I'm done feeling like this. I'm done playing second fiddle to other people, and I'm gonna take control, because there was a lot of that feeling sorry for yourself, and definitely not in a great mindset at the time. I was young though too, a lot of those things come with maturity and come with age and experience and heartache and things of that nature. And and I think that's like a common misconception is people think that I've been in shape my whole life, and that, and no, not at all. I was just, 2008, I was almost 300 pounds.
Well, yeah, I mean, same thing. I dealt with weight issues. Stayed in great shape once I got into my teen years. Was injured, gained a lot of weight, got to 300 pounds. I actually just dropped 80 pounds through hiking. And I always tell people, for myself, they ask for advice. And the first step is actually getting over yourself. In other words, getting out of your head and doing it instead of this defeative attitude. Is there any sort of insecurity that still lingers in your brain from those days of being overweight?
Oh, absolutely. I don't see what other people see. I see the fat kid, and then, people are always amazed when I tell them this, but I grew up with a terrible stutter. Like I was terrified to talk. Now you hand me a mic, I'll talk for an hour long, and I won't run out of things to say. I don't mind public speaking. I don't get nervous. I'll get up in front of 200 people right now and speak, and it wouldn't bother me one bit. So to go from the fat kid who was afraid to talk because he was afraid to stutter and someone would make fun of him, to what I am now is, night and day, but also proof that if you truly put your mind to something and you want to overcome an obstacle, that's all it's going to take is hard work. There's a bodybuilding company around here called Axe and Sledge, run by Seth Feroci, and he has a saying that there are no problems, there's just more work. No matter what comes up in your life, there's just more work to do. And that's kind of what I subscribe to. I'll never give up on anything. I'll always give it my all. And I don't shy away from hard work, and that's, people are always like, well, how do I get in and that's the other thing too. People say, how do I get in the shape? How do I this? How do I that? And when I lay out what they have to do, it's like, oh, well, I didn't realize it was going to take all that. Never mind.
Right.
You know,
Well, that leads me to a question. It seems like, especially the past 6 months, more so than ever, they've come out with these drugs to help people lose weight. Are you a fan of that, or is it it's a short term fix for something that's more long term, right? Because you're not creating good habits by working out.
so I guess it would depend on the user.
Right.
You know, I don't understand the long term effects of what might be down the road, but I also am smart enough to know that there is no safe drug.
Right.
Every drug, whether it be Tylenol or, Wegovy or, whatever those drugs are, X amount of people will suffer adverse effects.
Mm-hmm.
You need to decide that what is important to you. Is feeling good right now and your goals more important, or is possibly losing your hair, which is now linked to that, bone cancers have been linked to it, muscle wasting. What is important to you? I We are all individuals and we have to make our own choices for for what we feel is best. I don't begrudge anybody for using those drugs. I think they can be a really wonderful thing. I mean, look, I'm an ex-steroid abuser.
Right.
Who would I be to point the finger at somebody and, say that they're anything less than for using that?
Right.
I'm certainly not going to be a hypocrite in that regard. Do I think they can be used safely? Absolutely. Do I think that people are overdoing it and looks very sickly and are going to rapidly increase those side effects? Absolutely.
Right.
There's a difference between use and abuse.
Right.
So people that use them, if it's helping you, more power to it. Keep using it. If you're straying over to that abuse side, then I think that maybe you need to look at what is really the underlying issue. Why are you abusing this? What is it about yourself that you're unhappy with or that you want to fix? Because maybe your weight really isn't the problem. Maybe you need to look at something else. And they're just kind of covering it up with that.
Right. Because people see you in great shape. That's kind of the standard you set. Do you ever feel trapped by the expectations to look a certain way now?
Oh, every single day. Every single day. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I take a lot of pride in my body. I take a lot of pride in looking the way I look in pictures and videos when I wrestle. So yeah, would I be as rabid as I am right now with working out? Probably not. If I miss like let's say like I'm running out of time and I can't do my ab workout for the day, I'll do it on my lunch break. Now, if I wasn't wrestling, would I take my lunch break to do, 200 sit-ups? No, I wouldn't. But that feeling of if I don't do this, I'm not going to look good the next time I wrestle, is keeps me doing stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely feel a pressure to it, but I feel that's good. People always talk about stress and pressure as like a negative thing. Even fear. Fear keeps you safe. Fear keeps your head on a swivel. Th- there's nothing wrong with having those things in your life if it's going to keep you on the straight and narrow. And for me, when I feel comfortable, that's when things start to go not so good for me. I like being uncomfortable. I like that stress factor. I like that burden on my shoulder of I have to be better. I have to do more. Because that just keeps me going. I just feel like that too many people are too fat and happy in this world now. They got their Facebook and they got their PS5 and they got their energy drink to sit there. I guess you need energy to play video games nowadays. And we just are a world that's attached to gizmos and gadgets and feeling good all the time. And like I said before, it's too much of that, uh, you know, um, my happiness is first and foremost, you know. And listen, if you can prioritize happiness as the most important thing in your life, God bless you.
Right.
You must not have any bills or any mouths to feed.
Yeah.
So guess what? If I don't feel good tomorrow morning, I'm going to get up at 1:40 in the morning. I'm going to go work out. Then I'm going to go work 10 hours.
Yep. Absolutely. Mr. Herb Simmons, SICW owner, FanFest4, says, good afternoon, gentlemen. Herb, thank you so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure when I know you're watching. You know, you made the comment about too many people are fat and happy. Look, and people will get pissed off when I say this, and so be it. No, DM me, tell me I'm an asshole. But and what I'm saying is a fact. Doctors have said it. The movement that has killed more people in this country is the Big is Beautiful movement. It has literally killed people in this country.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree. Let's talk about Swole Patrol. How did Swole Patrol with Vic Braun really start?
So it was at IWC. And I think at the time they really didn't have anything for Vic. And I don't know if they didn't see me as a singles wrestler. And I honestly think they just looked and went, he's bald and white. He's bald and white. Let's put them together. I mean, I really think it was that simple. You know, and they just basically said, how would you feel about this? And I never said no to anything. You know, I mean, I'd get in the car, drive 5 hours to Spencer, West Virginia, wrestle the opening match for $15, and get back in my car and drive 5 hours home just for the experience. I never said no. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And I met with Vic, and I'm like, this guy's a wild man. I'm like, we're going to get along great. And we just hit it off. And, we've been friends for 6 years, and not just tag partners. I mean, we're friends. Like we talk, we hang out, we, are involved in each other's lives. It's really been good. And I really couldn't ask for a better partner than him. In all sincerity. I mean, he's such a down to earth guy, has great ideas, can work his ass off. I always, a couple of times I watch him and I'm like, brother, I'm glad I'm on your team, man. I was like, cause you can be stiff, dude, and, but he's just a fun loving guy, man. He's just, Vic wants to have a couple beers and raise hell. And,
Now, I can tell just from talking to you that you have a very dominant type personality. Does Vic have a dominant style personality? And if so, how do you guys get around that so you guys can work together creatively without bumping heads?
I mean, honestly, we just kind of I think because we think so similarly, that the two dominant personalities mesh together very well. Now, if he was a flippy dippy type of person and, I was the ground and pound, I don't know if we would get along as well as we do professionally. But we both think the same way. We both, like I'll send him something like, hey, what do you think of this? He'll be like, I like that. What about adding this in? I'm like, oh, dude, I love that. He made our new theme song using AI. He made our new logo. Hey man, what do you think of this? I mean, he's so creative and he's so understanding, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, man, we just mesh really well. It's just one of those things that, like, if they did happen to just pick us out of the group because we were both bald and white, I'm glad they did, because it was a perfect fit.
Tag team wrestling requires trust. What does trust mean to VJ Hales?
I mean, you really have to work as a team, and you have to trust your partner to be at the right place at the right time, and be able to follow through. The good thing is that him and I both help each other. There's times where I'm like, hey, brother, I forget what's in the second part. Like, like I'm blanking right now. And he'll, da 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 da. There's times where he looks at me like, and I'm like, drop down, clothesline, like, you know what I mean? And I'll relay it back to him. So it's always good to have that person, you know what I mean? Like, we work really well together that way. Some days I'm off, some days he's off, but the other one's always there to pick up the slack. And I think that's that's good for any relationship, whether it be a marriage, a best friend, or a tag partner. You're not always going to be at the top of your game, but the other person is there to make sure that everything is working smoothly when that happens. And once again, we just mesh so well that way.
Right.
You know,
If Swole Patrol ended tomorrow, how difficult would it be for you to go back to singles action?
I mean, right now, extremely difficult, seeing as I can't use the left side of my body, basically. I text Rick, the owner of 814, after I hurt my shoulder, and I said, "Hey, man," I said, "I'm not canceling." I said, "I'll be there." I said, "But Vic's gonna have to do a lot of the heavy lifting." I said, "I really can't do a lot. I got to, kind of protect this, And so it's working a tag team that way is always nice. But you also do have that fear of, what if they get hurt?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're essentially hurt too, because you're a team.
Right.
And I didn't want to let him down. It was funny because we worked that show together when I hurt my shoulder, and he's like, you could tell he wanted to ask me without asking me. He's like, "Yeah, man, how you feeling? How you feel? Like, is it like moving a little bit better now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, like, it's not as sore as it was, 10 minutes ago when it happened." And he's like, "Yeah, so like next week." And I'm like, "Vic, I'm gonna be there, dude. Okay, like, you could just come out and ask me that. You don't have to beat around the bush, But it was funny because he's like, yeah. So next week, what do we? I'm like, "I'll be there, man. Don't worry, But yeah, he comes over to me. He's like, "Come on, get up." I'm like, "I'm not selling, dude. I can't move my arm." I mean, it was like paralyzed. Like, I'm trying to like lift it, and it's just hanging. I'm like, "Oh," after like maybe 10 seconds, I got some feeling back. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I was scared. I mean, I got hit, and it just dropped. It was useless. He's like, "Get up, come on." I was like, "I'm not selling, dipshit."
Was that one of your scariest moments in the ring as far as injury wise?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I tore my hamstring practicing over the summer. I picked this kid up for a slam, and he kind of dead weighted me, so I like double clutched to get him up and over, and I just felt this bang in my hamstring, and I just like, So yeah, in an actual match, that's the first time I've ever been seriously injured. One time I was working a battle royal to open a show, and then working a 6-man tag later on, and I didn't realize the ring steps were there, and I got shit canned out of the battle royal and came down and realized the steps were there, and cracked my wrist off of it, and had a hairline fracture in my wrist. Just taped it up real good and, worked that night. But that was probably the closest that I've come to getting injured in the ring, before I tore my rotator cuff there.
We live in a world, and fans, I don't get political. I'm just stating a damn fact. We live in a world where masculinity is considered toxic.
Mm-hmm.
The gimmick you guys really lean into is the toxic masculinity. Mm-hmm. What inspired that direction? Was it real world shit that's happening?
It was. Actually, Vic came up with that whole toxic masculinity thing. That was something that he, kind of brought to the team, and I said, I love it. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was to piss people off, because it was, what I mean? It was right around COVID, and it was, the more girly you are and the more shots you get and the more masks you wear, the better human you are. And if you, think differently or whatever else, you're wrong and you're bad, and, masculinity is bad. And so it was kind of playing off all of those like political tropes that were going on at the time. And, obviously to get more heat, you obviously want to go with the one that the majority of people are disliking at the time. If we lived in Tennessee, then maybe we would have come down with masks on and Joe Biden T-shirt, something.
Right,
I mean, we would have went the opposite way. So it wasn't any sort of political stance of how we personally feel. It was just we're heels. We live in PA, so we're going to be, masculine.
right.
But if, like I said, if it would have been down south, we would have just done the opposite.
Well, and we're going to get into how you personally feel because I don't know you well enough. I definitely have never met your tag team partner, but just if I was just judging right now, someone would ask me, "Do you think VJ's a masculine guy?" I do, right? How much is this gimmick a gimmick versus you?
I would say probably 60-40. I do love physical stuff. I do, I am masculine. I I don't dress particularly well. What I'm wearing right now is usually what you'll see me in 90% of the time. But I also, I love going to the symphony. I like to read and write poetry. I've been playing the guitar since I was 12 years old. There is a less masculine side of me of things that I do enjoy. But I don't think that those things define who I am, nor does my looks or, outward masculinity define who I am. I'd like to think that I'm a good mesh of, everything. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I'd rather go to the gym, watch wrestling, and watch a horror movie. I'm a horror fanatic, so yeah. But yeah, no, I got a little bit of everything wrapped up into me.
What's the difference between performing with arrogance and actually feeling insecure?
So I that's a really great question and a tough one to answer. So when I come down to the ring, I'm not insecure about anything. I'm focused. I've turned Vince off and I've turned VJ on. And I know that's like hard for people to understand, but if you're in this line of work, you understand it. And it's a very freeing feeling. And I honestly think that's what's so addicting about it is because VJ doesn't have any problems.
Right.
There's nothing in my mind for that half an hour or whatever it is other than putting on a great show, being engaging with the fans, protecting the person that I'm working with, and protecting myself as well. That's all that I'm thinking about. And I'm not one of these people that plans out their matches beforehand. I can't work like that because I have a memory like an 80-year-old. So I let's start this way. Here's your takeover. If we're going to do a double down, here's a double down. This is the finish and the rest. Let's just talk out there and have some fun. So I, just because I don't see myself physically as others see me, and I still have that insecurity of being the little fat kid, that doesn't mean that I'm any less confident walking down to the ring. I know what I have to do. I know how I have to do it. And I'm just focused on being as safe as I can, and putting on a great show. And that's really all that I'm concerned with when I'm walking down there. I mean, my mind is clear. There's not, if I look out in the crowd and see my family, then yeah, I'm thinking about my family in that moment. But the moment I get down off the buckle and I'm looking at Vic, they're back off and, in the back of my mind, and I'm focused now on what I'm doing.
I'm glad you mentioned VJ doesn't have any problems, right? Because next couple of questions is about your character. I'm not a professional wrestler, but I have to imagine if I was a character, a professional wrestler, and I knew my character didn't have any problems and I have this shit going on in my life, how tempting is it for you to actually use your character to hide something real?
it is very tempting and something that I definitely fell into early on. Um, you know, I was the guy that worked the match, and then VJ went out to the bar, and VJ got home at 5 in the morning, and
Right.
I definitely got lost in the character at a certain point. Um, but things weren't good at home. Um, things weren't good at work. There wasn't a lot of positives going on in my life, so it was very appealing to lose myself in that character. Um, however short of a time, it was still an escape. Now the moment I step out of that ring and unlace my boots, VJ's done. He's gone.
Right.
Most of the time I'll go out and sit in the crowd with my family and watch the rest of the show. And, Vic will usually join me. Little kids will come up and want pictures and autographs, or people will want to talk to us. And Vic gets so mad at me because he likes to stay in character, man. He'll go up to a little kid and go, "You're going to give me $5 for my autograph?" And I go right into like dad mode. I'm like, "Oh, hey, sweetheart, did you enjoy the show? How are you?" And he's like, "Stop it. Stop talking to them." He gets all mad, but yeah, I just can't help it, man. As soon as I'm out of that ring, it's over and done with.
Do you ever worry that fans may mistake the character for the man? Or if the fans are mistaking the character for the man, do you consider that a success? You have sold VJ as, that character as what he needs to be, and you're over with the fans. How do you look at that?
So that's kind of a double-edged sword, and something that I actually enjoy, because people do think that's how I am.
Right.
They think that if they walk up to me, I'm going to call them a fat ass, or insult them or something, or
Right.
or be rude. And I always love that reaction when they actually stop and talk to me. It's like that shocked wide eye, like, "Oh my God, you're not an asshole." And I'm like, "Well, I am an asshole, but I'm just not being one right now." But
Right.
no, but no, yeah, people usually do, think that I'm going to be like I am in the ring. But it's always cool to see, the reaction when they figure out I'm not. Like, I've had fans that have been like, "Hey, would you be willing to help me, with a diet or exercise plan?" And I'll sit down with them and be like, "So what are you doing? What's working? What's not working?" And I'll sit and talk with them for a half hour and give them some pointers. I'm not trying to, sell my personal training, or anything like that. I just, I enjoy helping people. I enjoy talking to people. And, anyone who's taken the time to talk to me after a show knows that I'll sit with you until, I'm blue in the face, and give you all the time in the world, all the help in the world, and just, learn about you.
Right.
Most times I ask people, "Hey, where are you from? What made you come here tonight? What'd you like? What didn't you like?" I pick their brains. That's information to use. "Oh, I really like this match. I'll go back and watch that match they talked about. Oh yeah, that was a cool spot. Oh, I like what he did there."
Right. Right. What does the word legacy mean to you?
Man, legacy. I just you made some sort of an impression on somebody. Somebody remembered something you did, something you said, a way that you made them feel. And maybe when they go back to that venue, or that company is brought up, or they look at a t-shirt they wore that night, they think of you and your match or something you did. And that, I mean, I hope that I leave a legacy. I hope that somebody someday, talks about a match they saw, or something I said to them, and that, it made them laugh, or, something like that. There couldn't be a higher compliment to be paid, than to hear that you impacted somebody's life in some way. Hey, maybe some little kid is watching and wants to now go to wrestling school because of me. I would be flattered. I'd be honored. That would be like the greatest thing ever. Because believe me, if I could do it, anyone could do it. And if I could do it at 40 years old, you could do it.
Right. A couple more questions, my man. When wrestling's over with, what do you hope remains?
So I think I learned the last time around that I will always be involved in some way. When I physically can't do this the way that I want to anymore, um, I'd love to manage or ref or book, or maybe even start my own company. I just know that I love this. I love this business. I love everything about it. And I'll never fully walk away from it. So until I'm 6 feet under, I'm going to be doing something with professional wrestling.
Last one. I want you to finish this sentence. Wrestling didn't just teach me how to take bumps. It didn't just teach me how to fight. It taught me how to
amaze. It taught me how to be amazed and to amaze other people. Because if you think that I'm not in there amazed that you bought a ticket to see me, or that I'm not amazed that you brought in your child's Paw Patrol, you know, um, towel blanket for after their bath to wear to mock me, um, you know, and I'm just always amazed. I'm amazed at the wonderful people that I get to work with the amazing promoters that I've surrounded myself with. I'm always amazed when somebody wants to book me. I was amazed whenever you contacted me to do this podcast. I'm like, really? Me?
Wow.
Like, I mean, I'm never, as much as I play to have an ego in the ring, I'm one of the most humble human beings you'll ever meet. And I am always just shocked and amazed that anybody gives a shit about me, honestly. That is so flattering. And it is, it's what keeps me showing up with this bum shoulder. This thing could be hanging on by a thread and I would still go because just need it,
Right.
and yeah, it's everything to me. The fans, the support, the people I wrestle with, the promoters, everything. I mean, like I said before, VJ may not have any problems, but Vince does.
Right.
But all those people that I am surrounded with amaze me every day. The support, the people that text me just to see how I'm doing. I really couldn't ask for a better group to be around, better influences, better support, better. I mean, it's amazing. And, I, I owe everything to them. I really do. I'm amazed that my family supports me. That's just the first word that comes to mind is being amazed at everything. A lot of times it's just a whirlwind, but a great one. And I'm just forever honored and amazed.
Well, Vince, I truly enjoyed our conversation. I think, Vince, you're a great guy. I truly hope success for you, though. I hope you're able to have people continuously hate VJ.
Yeah, he's a dick.
But again, I really, truly, sincerely enjoyed this conversation. Is there any dates you want to plug?
May 1st, 2PW is a Friday night out in Irwin, PA. And then May 2nd, back in the Johnstown Galleria for 814, back-to-back nights.
Awesome. Guys, please subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget, I will be back at 7 p.m. tonight with WCW veteran Robbie Ido and co-host of Wrestling Memories, the Grizzle Vet. We're going to be talking about AEW from last night. Did we like it? Did we love it? Was it just okay? Join us to find out. Again, VJ, thank you so much, my friend. You're always welcome to come back. I hope you guys all have a great night.
Brother, thank you so much for having me, man. This was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.